Everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. You have jumped into another SEMrush webinar. You may have noticed by now, but SEMrush puts out an incredible series of webinars. It's you could fill your calendar with high-value content strictly by looking at the SEMrush webinar page. Today's is going to be a conversation with some expert veteran marketers. Very exciting. In a sort of an Ask Me Anything session. So we're going to open it up. There's going to be plenty of Q&A, but we've already got some input from you guys, just from the SEMrush, just from like a Twitter chat, to kick off some questions. And I'm Andy Crestodina. I'm one of the co-founders of Orbit Media. We're a web development company here in Chicago. I'm a 20-year SEO and a 15-year content marketer. I have two guests with me, and so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with you, Judith. Where are you dialing in from, and what do you do?
Hello, caller number 2. Hey, I'm Judith Lewis. I'm calling in from Oxfordshire in the UK. Yes, that's right. We're having a great cloudy time here in the UK. I do full suite marketing. So I do social media, I do SEO, and I do PPC. I come from a hard code background. That's right. I used to program with the best of them back when Pascal was sexy and I was young. That makes me very old. So yeah, I do all this stuff. I'm a consultant now, and people bring me in to try to fix things. And once I fix them, I go away and they break them again.
Thank you for joining us, Judith. Love that you're here. And Keith Reynolds.
Hello there. How are you? I'm Keith Reynolds, calling in from Stamford, Connecticut. And actually, I'm in a co-working space in Darien, Connecticut, right next door. But Fairfield County, Connecticut is... I have a company called Publio, and been doing content marketing for a long time.
Yeah, these we have some like senior level veteran contributors in this conversation. So we're expecting not your typical answers to some questions that I think will trigger a good conversation. We're going to jump right in. Our first question, I'm going to start with you, Keith. Content marketing challenges, of course, there are many. We know what the usual suspects are. What are the current content marketing challenges that you're facing now that maybe you didn't face in the past? And I know that you've got a bit of a framework around this. Feel free to share your screen, but tell us what we're handling now, what the big challenges are, and how you're addressing them.
Yeah, the challenge for many content marketers is to understand that it's a systems approach. And the two traditional challenges that are evergreen, I would say, are having a content strategy that aligns with your customers' goals and needs, and having the machine to put out content on a consistent basis and meet your goals that you set in your content calendar, and just staying on top of the content production machine. Those are the two big ones that everyone seems to deal with. But more recently, with the rise of APIs, just getting all the systems to talk to each other in your marketing automation and connecting it into your CRM and being able to get the reporting and analytics out in a way that makes sense so that you can have continuous improvement.
You're an advocate for content hubs. How is that related to those integrations you mentioned?
It is. So I've built a couple, several really big content hubs, branded content hubs. And I've developed a methodology to help do that. I'll just put that up really quickly. Let's see if this can share screen. StreamYard share. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, Gregory. We're ready for it. There it is.
Excellent. So, taking this systems approach and working in an agile environment to get your content out consistently and to have it on strategy. Over the years, I've developed 7 buckets, I call them. And the first one is to have a North Star idea. It's your why, an idea that guides your publication and connects with your audience. you've got to have a editorial strategy to support that North Star idea. And you do that, express that through a content calendar, publishing, promotion, and distribution, are your social media and advertising, the ways that you get your content out to the marketplace. Community and events is very similar to the publishing, promotion, and distribution, but it's also a source of content. Marketing automation, again, is all the systems you bring together. It helps you create content and distribute content on scale, and it also gives you the reporting back so that you know that you're on track and where you have areas of improvement. A sales model is bringing your sales team into the mix and helping them know how to share content, making it available through their CRM, training them on how to handle inbound leads and to talk to customers about their goals based on the content that you have as a resource for them. And finally, an ROI model so that you can talk to executives about the value that you're adding to the business with your content strategy.
We are going to come back to this. I love that you've got like a train the sales team in there. That's a bit unusual. I don't know of many content marketers that take the time to try to train the sales reps on how to respond to leads. That's going to come up again here in a bit. Judith, interesting challenges. What's happening in 2021? How are you handling? What are you seeing and how are you taking it on?
One of the biggest challenges I have is just doing the analysis. So year on year analysis is actually really difficult right now because we're just hitting the point where we were pandemic hit. So our ability to actually see how things are changing and evolving is challenging. So we're using Hotjar to understand where people are going through the website. We're using Google Analytics to see how people are behaving on the website. And we're also using Google search. Obviously, we're looking up what people are searching for. We're implementing schema and also looking at user behavior from search. So when people come into the site from organic search, how are they behaving differently than PPC versus a referral? So we're using all the data points that we can to understand what people are doing and try to tailor the content to solve the problems that they're facing.
I love that point about going one step farther. It's not just about the top of funnel and attracting a visitor. It's about what does that visitor do? How is the quality of that visitor different per channel? I've always noticed very widely differences in conversion rates for visitors from search versus social versus direct. But you said something that I think is very relevant that I haven't heard that much discussion about. How are you measuring year over year when like keyword demand is like the whole map got shuffled here? Is it even possible to do year-over-year metrics right now?
I don't believe that year-over-year metrics are going to yield the kind of results that we need. In the UK, our benchmark date is April. I think it's April 7th or April 8th. I'd have to double check, but it's either April 7th or April 8th, and that's the date after which we saw this sudden extreme spike of demand, surge in demand after people panicked. Drop back to pandemic levels. So it's not gone to pre-pandemic levels by any stretch of the imagination. So we have to wait until that point for pandemic levels. Then we're going to have to wait and look at 2019 versus 2021 to get post-pandemic levels. So we're using week on week, month on month, year on year. We're looking at everything, but right now we're looking at how people behave on the site itself. And we keep making tweaks and changes based on user behavior. And of course, based on where they've landed, because each different page is addressing a different user need. So if we see them start to behave differently as a result of landing on an informational page versus a conversion page, we start to make tweaks.
Yeah, I've got one of my favorite segments I have in Google Analytics tracks the differences between people who start their visit on a blog post versus people who start their visit on a sales page. It's 50 times higher conversion rate for visitors who start their visit on a service page. The conversion rate from visitor into lead from blog post is like 0.03% or something.
Yeah,
it's a 50x difference. Like, why are we working so hard to optimize these blog posts when really like a tiny lift on this service page may lead to far greater, not much more traffic, but maybe many, many more leads. But that year-over-year thing is fascinating. I've got a client we work with. They do cleaning, like office cleanings. And traffic to these office cleaning pages went way up. And the SEO perspective is, yeah, we're doing great in search rankings. It's got nothing to do with search rankings. It's just keyword volume spiked.
Yep. Yeah.
So
especially cleaning.
Yeah, office cleaning. There's just more demand for that topic. So I think that's really interesting. Current challenge with just the data. I want to move on, but Keith, anything else about that, or Judith? Like, you're using Google Trends, or how do you?
Well, I guess I'd add to that the one thing about the content hub aspect of your content strategy is that, yes, there's the analytics side, and is it driving to your money out objectives? There's also the how does it help you build community? Because if you're really covering your marketplace, you're talking to your partners, you're creating link opportunities and many of the other things that help support your go-to-market. And so those blog posts have a lot of other roles to play than just driving traffic into sales.
Oh, I didn't mean, I would 100% agree. One way that I've tried to explain, just to go a little bit farther with that, because I'm not about to quit content marketing, even though the conversion rate from visitor into lead is low. Without helpful, useful articles, nobody's ever going to link to your site. Without links to your site, you're going to have a very low authority score. Low authority score, you're not going to rank for the commercial intent key phrases, and you won't really rank for those valuable phrases for the money pages. That's rarely discussed, right? Like that, in the powerful indirect benefit, you need content marketing so that the world has something to link to. No links, no ranking for the commercial intent key phrase, therefore no qualified visitors, therefore no leads. So no, I just, but I brought it up just because Judith's point about the difference in behavior, but I will never stop writing.
I just had to say it because, anyone of my clients that are listening, take that one statistic out of context, I could be out of work.
Yeah, you'd have no, right. I did not mean to say, right, without content, you won't get traction in social. You won't get traction in email. You won't have, those are sales support articles sometimes. To your point, you connected that last dot, Keith. I love that. Yeah. We should all be writing content that helps the sales team. That's not about rankings even at all. So no, we should write together an article with like the 65 reasons to create content, even if those visitors don't convert directly into business leads.
One of my favorites is in a trade show environment, being able to walk up to somebody in a booth and instead of saying, sure, hey, can I get your card? I want to make a sales call. I'd like to write an article about you.
The networking benefit of content. Yeah, the sales enablement, the account-based marketing angles to content. One of the best reasons to start a podcast is it gives you a reason to reach out to the people you want to meet so you can interview them. My personal rule on my blog, I would never, ever write an article without getting at least one contributor quote. If I did that, I'd be missing opportunities to grow my personal network, missing opportunities to improve the quality of the content, missing opportunities to get greater social reach because that person's likely to share. Yeah, I think journalists don't write articles without including sources. Why do content marketers keep writing articles without contributor quotes? That's called zero waste marketing. You get value from the piece even before you click publish.
That's right.
You ever learn by reading your own blog? That's part of a really good day.
Sometimes we forget things we blog about. But I also have one e-commerce client, and we use the blog to compete with the affiliates. So we watch what the affiliates are doing in the market, and we use the blog to directly head-to-head compete with the affiliates who are in our space. So we're using the blog creatively, and we convert on those pages as though we were an affiliate. So it can actually work in a lot of different ways. It supports so many different functions. It's important to create content, and it's important to create fresh and new content because, especially right now, people are looking for something that's relevant to them in the moment. And a lot of our evergreen content from 2019 and before isn't evergreen at the moment.
That's a really good point. And it segues into our next question, but a quick anecdote first. I was looking at chatbots recently. Which ones are good? How much do these things cost? Prices are changing for these things. How much does Intercom cost? Like the top ranked article for Intercom pricing was this article about why is Intercom pricing so confusing? It wasn't from them. It was a competitor who wrote this article about how their pricing is confusing. And I have to admit, after reading this article, I was far less interested in Intercom because their point was that they're not transparent and it's confusing. Thanks, Mari. My door was open. I'm making noise. Moving on. Next question. How do you know what type of content? So that was bottom funnel content. I just described a pricing question. How do you know what type of content works for a particular stage in the conversion funnel? Judith.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Google Analytics and Hotjar. You've got to be watching what's actually happening on your site. If you don't understand how people are moving through your site, what content is doing what where in the funnel, then you are lost. If you don't know that a blog post isn't necessarily going to convert, but it's going to assist in brand affinity, then you're going to look at non-converting blog posts and just go, whatever. You need to understand your customer. You need to do your research, and you need to make sure that you have the right programs set up on your site to look at what the content that you're building is doing. Because if you're not aware of how your content is behaving and how your users are behaving, it's like, I don't know, swimming in the dark. It's okay, but it's not safe.
Do you have any, like, a quick example of a piece of content that worked in like the middle or the bottom of the funnel? We all know, I mean, this is SEMrush, so we all know what top of funnel content looks like. What do you think is working farther down the funnel?
Well, for direct bottom of the funnel, where we're converting, these blog posts that we're doing right now, that we're heading against affiliates on, we're converting on those pages. So they are pages like, it's a retail client, and I'll pick a different vertical. So I'll pick a bubble bath. The top 10 bubble baths that you need right now.
Yeah.
17 different ways self-care has revolutionized my life. Here are my top picks. Those are the types of blog posts that convert. They convert on the blog post, on the day that the person hits them, because we're addressing a customer need and we're providing the solution. The middle of the funnel, after they know what they want, but before they're actually ready to convert, that doesn't maybe convert on the page itself, are assists. So something like 13 chemical components you didn't know was in your shampoo. And in that sense, what we're trying to do is dissuade them from going to a competitor, keep them on, I guess it would be an organic or natural product site. And it might not necessarily convert there because it's a negative article. So, 13 chemicals you didn't know were in your shampoo is a negative article. Might not convert in that moment, but it will create an affinity with the brand and a feeling of, oh my gosh, I didn't know. Maybe I should stick with this brand who are educating me. So I've seen that then result in people converting later if they're within that 30-day cookie window. So we are watching, we're watching at the moment while we still can with cookies, but we're watching what works and where it's working.
I love that. I think that there is a very powerful.
Ooh. Did we lose our host?
No, I'm back. I jumped backstage for a quick minute. I had to grab something. No, I don't know what that was.
Welcome back.
So our host, by the way, SEMrush, is doing something with that is relevant to this. If you haven't seen it yet, we will share an announcement and an email follow-up. But there is a tool called Impact Hero that SEMrush has developed. It's a bit of a separate kind of sub-brand. And it analyzes all of your content and shows you where your content is performing in the top, middle, and bottom of the funnel. It's basically like a 3-column layout that shows your top performers at top of funnel, attracting visitors, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Unlike analytics, it sets up goals kind of for you. Like, it can tell like what a form submission is and how well these articles are supporting form submissions. Look for more info about Impact Hero in a follow-up. Keith, same question. Content marketing as it works in the funnel. You already mentioned sales training, which just kind of blows my mind a little bit, but how do you know what type of content works well in which stage of the funnel?
I would say part of it's part art and part science. And I really, from the work that I do, is really a deep dive on the research and understand what customer goals are, and then being able to come up with a North Star idea and editorial strategy to support that. And I lay it out in the customer's journey. And it's very intuitive. And then I use the reporting and analysis as a follow-up to keep improving on what we have. But I've really come to this as a writer, producer, and appreciate the art of it as well, the human factor.
I have friends who take an approach to content strategy where they create a matrix. This is B2B. You create a matrix where every column is a different decision maker and different rows are different funnel stages. So they analyze the content to and learn quickly, like, oh, there's a powerful decision maker who has important questions, and in this part of the funnel, we're not answering her questions. Like, we need to put that. There's like a gap analysis approach where you build a matrix showing all different B2B influencers and decision makers in all different funnel stages. I've never done that, honestly, but I find that really interesting as a way to perform to look for gaps, because the analytics, they don't jump out at you, do they? Like, analytics doesn't necessarily immediately, like, the insights, you got to dig for them, right?
Yeah, especially if you're looking at decision makers. They're not, Google Analytics sadly has not yet given us the ability to say, oh, I see you, Sally, CEO of the online marketing consultant.com or whatever. I wish it did. And they probably know, but they haven't yet given us the power. So it would be fantastic. But I like the idea of the columns because you can really clearly see gaps when you do that sort of exercise.
So I use a mapping tool that I've, sorry, Judith, I stepped on you.
No. I was waiting for you. You've left us all hanging now. You're using a tool.
The screen froze. It was a little disconcerting. I use a tool that basically has a 9-step journey that I think through from first awareness through delighting the customer. And I use 2 columns because a number of my customers have a consumer facing element of their business, but much of their revenue is driven through a B2B sale, right? Through selling into a channel. And so I'll map out the customer journey along the consumer benefit and the B2B benefit, and work with clients to come up with content at each of those 9 steps that's very different, consumer facing versus the channel.
I've got an approach for content audits that's very much relevant to the funnel, where if you look in analytics at the reverse goal path, you can see which articles people were reading right before they subscribed. It's like goal previous step 1, and the reverse goal path report in the conversion section, you can see what people were doing before they took action in a reverse path. So you can see which articles people were reading right before they subscribed, using a calculated metric where you divide that number by the unique page views on each article. This is possible in Google Sheets. It's a fancy thing. You can really see what percentage of visitors who read an article and then subscribed. Exactly which articles are your best mousetraps. That analysis, that's like it's middle of funnel, I suppose, because they're just subscribing. But that analysis to see what are your high converting articles, if you combine that with the articles that are attracting the most visitors and put lots of calls to action from the high traffic ones to the high converting ones, it's like putting your best cheese on your best mousetraps. You can get better results. You can grow your email list very quick, much faster than you are probably, just by figuring out which, you already know what your high traffic posts. That's default, like number 1, probably the most popular report in analytics. Wouldn't you like to know what the most popular? Yeah. But the conversion rates from visitor to subscriber per article, once you know what those are, you know exactly what to put in heavy social rotation, what to put back on your homepage, what to put back on the top of the blog, what to link to from your email signature, and what to link to from your high traffic posts, your high ranking posts, your best cheese. That's an audit-based approach to funnel opportunities. Anything else? Any other insights from analytics or from SEMrush or any other tools that help you learn what's working in which funnel stage?
I do love SEMrush. I love spying on my competition, though. I really do. I love using SEMrush to see what they're doing, where they got their links from, to what articles, how many keywords are they ranking for, where, and then SEMrush gives you that traffic estimate. So it's fantastic for just doing a little bit of nosing around the competitors to see if there are any gaps that you should be filling.
It'd be really hard to do my job without SEMrush, the short way to say it. You can see if someone is a legit competitor. Are they a business competitor? Are they an online digital content player? Sometimes you just look at them and say, having a great day. These guys are terrible at this. We're going to win.
Yeah.
Or there's, what's the one with the audience overlap tools there are
the bubbles.
Yeah. That's an excellent way to see who's, without a tool like SEMrush, I think of it as like you're standing on a high hill looking at the battlefield, and you can see where the fights are being fought. Without a tool like this, you might be losing a huge, important, and valuable category or a topic cluster that you didn't even know about. No one can think of every possible keyword. It's not realistic. So I think we need tools like this. Thank you, SEMrush, and the whole MarTech field for keeping to push innovation and giving us insights. Yeah. We're on behalf of all as if I can speak for all digital marketers. Thank you.
It was really interesting. I'm doing a competitive analysis right now, and I have two major competitors that are using similar approaches in the content that they're publishing, but one of them has a much more emotional connection, and the other one is clearly just writing stuff out of keywords. And I'm wondering, what do you guys do to get your customers to have content that has an emotional human connection besides just the technical side of this?
I'm excited to answer, but Judith, go ahead. You go first. I'm a degree in psychology, so I use psychology. I basically demonstrate to them how much more content that has an emotional hook resonates with them. And then there is an amazing book by Seth Stevens-Davidovitz, I think it is, called Everybody Lies. And that book is full of gold. Between that and Nicholas Nassim Taleb, they've both done my job for me of selling the reason why we need emotive, connecting content that actually tells a story and is meaningful. So if you were ever to read two books in your life, well, maybe not two books, because Nicholas Nassim Taleb has more than just Black Swan, but between Black Swan and Everybody Lies, those two books are absolute marketing gold.
As every attendee adds to their book wish list, these two books. Thank you for that. I love those tips. Books are just like the most cost-effective way to learn stuff. It's just incredible how much information you can get at such a low cost.
And then you put it on a Kindle.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
Yeah. It's super accessible. It goes deep into topics. It just takes the patience to get in, right? Build a habit around reading full-length books. One of my tips, though, for that more interesting, emotional, provocative content stuff that's going to get traction, I recently did a quick interview of Ryan Law, who is currently like head of content for Animals, spelled with a Z. It's a content marketing firm that works with SaaS brands. They're here in the US. Although Ryan, I think, is a Brit. Anyway, it's a very unusual content strategy. They only publish an article, more or less, if it answers a sales question. They don't even bother with anything else because they don't even care about page views. This is a weird thing to bring up on the SEMrush webinar because I'm an SEO. We're all SEOs here, but literally they have 100% sales and marketing alignment. Every article they publish can be sent individually to current prospects who might buy from them, right? So that's automatic. As I said, zero waste marketing. It's going to have automatic value. And one of their ways for doing this is to take a stand much more than their competitors would by putting opinion pieces, not just opinion pieces, but counter narrative opinions. They have a methodology for looking at what the current stories are and then coming out with a thing that sort of challenges that idea. Counter narrative positions have a massive, disproportionate success rate because they're sort of automatically interesting. A lot of brands don't really have the guts to kind of come out and plant a flag and say we're for something or against something. So Ryan Law and his idea for counter narrative opinions is just fascinating to me. It's automatically like those articles are never boring because they're designed to be a tiny bit provocative, which probably correlates with links and shares and all other good things. Maybe not rankings, but anything else. Any other tips, guys? For well, we're moving on here. Content performance, kind of related. The third question provided by the Twitter chat respondents. Thank you guys for contributing. How do you measure content performance? Big challenges for content performance. Judith? You got behavior metrics. You love your behavior metrics. You can.
I do. More. I do. So there are lots of ways that I love to measure the performance of content. Besides, I don't like to stick with just views. I like to look at dwell time. So are people actually engaging? I've worked with version.com and one of the things that we saw was a massively high bounce rate. And as you can imagine, anytime Richard Branson posted something to Twitter, an article he'd written, a blog post he'd written, our bounce rate went through the roof. And but our dwell time was like 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. Why? Because people were going from Twitter to the article, reading it, engaging with it, and then leaving, because it had fulfilled the need they had, which was to learn more. So I think you really need to be clear, and I work with publishers right now as well. You really need to be clear about what is the purpose of that, as we've already spoken about. What is the purpose of that article? Is it top, middle, bottom? And so are your engagement metrics the right ones? Like, is it time on site? Is it conversion? Why would I want to look to convert on an article about 13 chemicals you didn't know were in your shampoo, for example? Is that the right thing to be measuring? Should I be measuring likes? Should I be measuring social shares? No, time on site for something like that. But at top of funnel, I might want to measure social shares or just sharing. I might want to measure links into the site. So, but engagement for me is the biggest metric. Are they sticking on the site for more than seconds? And are they actually going deeper into the site? Have I made the right connections to lead them through the path to conversion?
So 95% bounce rate, 8 minute of dwell time. That's a successful
I'm happy
piece.
with that. I mean, if it's a blog post and it's not meant to sell anything, because it's a publishing site. So if you are a publisher and you're selling ads, an 8 minute dwell time means a lot of ad sales. So, and especially if they're scrolling. So you're going to get all of those ad sales, and that's exactly what you want. It doesn't matter that they bounced. You got the 8 minutes of dwell time.
Speaking of counter narrative opinions, Keith, bounce rate's irrelevant. Do you agree? He's bouncing on us. No, he's back.
Did I disappear? I think I had a bandwidth go up. Can you hear me?
Yep, I think you're okay. How do you feel about bounce rates?
I prefer not to see them, but they happen. I look at the time on the articles that I write, and I'm very much engaged with B2B sales. And so it's how long did they stay, and did we get some sort of conversion action? And then really in working, again, my emphasis on sales and involving the sales team is what are their customers telling them about it? And are we getting the traffic to convert? And when it converts, are the salespeople following up on those leads? And what kind of results are we getting? And so we're in constant conversation, and we use the data from our analytics to be able to go and talk to the sales team and really make sure that the content is not only of benefit to the reader, that we're trying to stay and keep the dwell time, but we're trying to get the conversions and get over to sales, and then make sure that sales is following through from traffic to leads to opportunities to sales. And then the last part I'll add is I really try and drive content into the sales as we've touched upon. So what is it that the sales team can be sharing, and having PDFs and account-based marketing kinds of tools, so that content just doesn't always sit on the site. It can be shared in other ways as well, but it's all part of the same story.
You guys are really fun to talk to about this, because those are wildly different perspectives, sort of arriving at the same conclusion, like de-emphasize the importance of bounce, emphasize the importance of behavior metrics, time on page and such. But Judith, that was a B2C or like advertising media company perspective. And Keith was the opposite. Like he's talking about sales enablement and sales marketing alignment, and like, making this thing a PDF so you can help close a deal. You guys, it's really interesting to hear two people coming from such different directions, sort of conclude the same thing, that
and using the same measurements.
Yeah, same metrics. I'm in agreement. So about the fact that bounce rate is not likely an important factor for almost anyone in most cases. I mean, bounce rate is life and death if it's a pay-per-click ad landing page.
Yeah.
There are moments when we care deeply about bounce rates, but the idea of bounce rate as being important for an article, a helpful, useful article that attracted visitors from a source like organic, it's far less important. We're a web design company. I have access to like 500 Google Analytics accounts. We've done more than 1,000 projects over the years. I once I had a VA look at all these analytics accounts and report back an average bounce rate. Anyone want to guess? What's the average bounce rate across a broad range of industries and websites? What do you think the average was across these 500 sites?
I'll go 63%.
Keith?
70%.
Judith, you were almost exactly right. It was 62%. The average bounce rate, I'm very, high five. Yeah, I need like an emoji for you. The average bounce rate across these 500 websites was 62%. So what am I doing this for? It's an article. I love to publish research. Research tends to attract links. Like people want to read something. So I write an article every 2 weeks. The article ranks for what's a good bounce rate. Thousands of visitors have seen it over the years. The bounce rate on that article is 88%. The bounce rate on my what's a good bounce rate article is 88%. I should update the article and put that number at the top. Do I care? I don't care. I don't care at all. It doesn't matter to me at all. It's jobs to be done, right? Not every piece of content is. Now, having said that, I mentioned a second ago a way to guide visitors deeper, put calls to action. I mean, we should all still try to lower our bounce rates through good, internal linking and inline CTAs. But do you think there's any correlation between bounce rate and rankings?
No.
No? Keith?
I've never used that or seen that.
In my experience, there's none. All of my highest ranking, most popular articles have insanely high bounce rates. I don't believe I believe in user interaction signals as in dwell time, but I don't see a correlation between bounce rates and rankings.
No, and it's a big myth and people panic about it. And I think it's very important that it's at every opportunity reinforced that there is no correlation between a high bounce rate and a poor ranking in your article. And if you, pogo sticking aside, if you have a high bounce rate, it does not mean you will necessarily lose rankings for an article. So panic over if you have a high bounce rate, because long dwell times is perfect if you have a high bounce rate. If it's 10 seconds or 8 seconds, or it's not registering at all, it's so fast, you probably got a problem there. But if you're at least seeing the metrics and it's bouncing, then it's fine. Don't panic. It's just normal.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between the short click and the long click, and that matters a lot. But it's not so much that. But they both have super high bounce rates. Both those, short and long dwell time. I love this conversation. Oh, Keith, go ahead.
I was just going to say again, looking at content and the interface between that and the sales team. One of the other metrics that I get customers' brain around is that 80% of your new business comes in a B2B setting, typically comes from your sales prospecting and your sales team. And your content can contribute around 20%, but all of the work that your salespeople do out in the field, if you have a really rich content environment and they're sharing it and they're out doing their prospecting, the people who meet your salespeople are going to come back and they're going to validate, right? And so if the sales team can be very specific, you may get that bounce rate high, but they're coming in and validating what the salesperson said, and it creates this alignment. And so that's a really important part of understanding your bounce rate.
Yeah, if the right person sees it, that's all that matters. The prospect saw the article, who cares? I'll be muting myself on and off as they're digging a hole outside, apparently. Chicago's not done building itself yet. Other metrics,
still recovering from the fire?
Yeah, 130 years ago. Almost done. Another metric that I don't care at all about, new versus returning visitors. Let me just put this out there. No one really talks about this much anyway, but what a dumb metric. People can look at that and say, oh, I don't have enough new visitors. I need to do more marketing. Or they can look and say, I don't have enough returning visitors. I need to do more for loyalty. You can like or dislike that number either way. Is there a way, do you guys have any ideas for how to get any value from that metric, or maybe another metric that you would like to rant about?
How to get value? Go ahead, Keith. I was going to make a pithy comment.
No, go ahead. Pithy comment, and then I'll follow up.
You'll follow up with intelligence after my pithy comment. The value in new versus returning is simply something to pitch to the C-suite if you need more budget. Most of the analytics that we see that are limited value are actually phenomenally good for pitching the C-suite to get more budget, especially things in PPC like lost impression, the lost impression metric. You're like, oh my God, we could have been appearing for so many more times. We weren't there because we don't have enough budget. Money, please.
Keith?
Yeah, I was just going to say, to tie it to what the goals are, if you're working with an organization that is not replacing, then the new visitors is an important metric. And yet, if you're not retaining clients, then you want to go the other end of the spectrum and try and have more return visitors. And so it really ties to, how are you going to drive value in the business? And that's a situational metric.
Agreed. Next question. When it comes to testing content elements like length, tone of voice, calls to action, layout, et cetera, I make a long list. What are the major tips you've got? Things to avoid? Things you've learned about the attributes of content?
Use SEMrush.
Long content is always better. True or false?
Oh,
it's
can I
actually
be
kind
an
of a tough
SEO and
question.
say it depends?
It is. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, the goal of the SEO should be to make the best page on the internet, which is inevitably kind of a longer piece. But
it's because when you have, I don't believe in this minimum word count BS that there is out there right now. That's often sold in by people like me. No, there's no minimum or maximum word count. It's the right number, but longer content tends to rank for more keywords because you've used more words in your article. So don't be fooled by spurious correlations. That does not mean it's causation. There are some fantastic examples on the internet of correlations that are not resultant from causation. So be very careful about this long idea of long content, meaning that you'll do better. It's not that. It's because you've used more words.
Simple explanation makes perfect sense. Rank for more words because you use more words. That's not weird. I think that's something that anyone could understand. But yeah, I think I've seen some of the spurious correlations, and they're very, very funny. Keith, do you have any opinions about content length or use of visuals, contributor quotes, data points?
I do, and I'm sorry, Andy, I didn't hear what you said.
Any thoughts about content length or maybe other attributes of content, such as use of visuals or contributor quotes or data or video or anything?
The best metric you have is when an executive says somebody commented on that article, and they are getting feedback that's complimentary. And so understanding your audience and knowing what thought leadership you need to put out there, what kind of stories are going to resonate with your audience, those are what really counts. At the end of the day, the metrics help, but you really want to have content that connects and that your executive team and the salespeople are all going, yeah, I loved it. Somebody said something about it. That's the best metric for me.
Keith, where did you come from? What are you doing here? This is an SEO conversation. SEOs never talk about what executives care. We money, what? Demand. We're trying to rank. Why do you keep distracting us with this, like what salespeople care? It's about sales and, executive buy-in. No, I love that you're here. Those are important messages for this audience and for everyone.
That?
I know.
And you know what? I think that's an important part for our SEOs is we bring people, especially younger people in. They don't understand that value proposition conversation of content. And so the more we can emphasize that and bring that through all of the team members, I think we do our clients and the people that work within the companies a favor.
Yeah, I think it's so important that one of the members of the audience one of the members of the audience is the boss or your client. So sometimes we forget as SEOs, our first job is to make the client look good. That is one of our main jobs. We are hired to make the client look good. I had a client who in B2B, the reason he needed us to do things was so that he would get his annual bonus. And so we were tasked to help him achieve his KPIs, whether they were relevant or likely to result in an SEO boost or not. It didn't matter. Our first job was to his KPIs. Our second job was to the SEO of the site.
I have mixed feelings about that in a way that is an ROI metric. It's like the actual person's bonus, but that's not exactly we just we have to hope in that scenario that it's aligned with business goals and that we're not just working for one team member. We just had a fun question from Adinda. Thank you for the question. It's along these lines: boring industry, busy audience. Example might be like something like certification. Any tips for standing out when the topic to you at least feels uninteresting and the audience is quite rushed? Keith?
I would take a situation like that and probably focus on the people who get the certifications and what it meant to them in their careers, and I'd tell those stories over and over and over.
Stories is a good one for that. Judith?
Did you know that there's some sort of certification for like alligator handler? Well, there are all sorts of crazy, interesting certifications. Think like a link builder. How are you going to get links built to content? Well, did you know that there was a certification for alligator handler? We might not have that certification, but we've got tons more, that kind of stuff. Like something that's going to be engaging. I call it Friday afternoon content, engaging, light, easy, but is sexy because you've taken a boring story certification and you've added something really interesting like, expert archer certification or Olympic torchbearer certification. I'm quite sure there's no Olympic torchbearer certification, but there might be.
Could be. Who knows? Adinda, thanks for that question. I would just add briefly just that boring is relevant to me maybe because I'm not in that target audience, but there are niches where people have passion that to me sounds so uninteresting. I remember I've got a friend who is looking for white space and found that maritime logistics, these are people on cargo ships floating around the world, like they've got time to consume some content, had a wide open area. Like there was nothing yet published on a bunch of those topics. There wasn't like a leading podcast yet. So boring to us maybe, but there's just think about a show like Seinfeld, that old TV show. Like people feel very passionate about very mundane things. Thanks for that question. Anyone else has a question, let us know.
And of course, maritime logistics right now, the Evergreen stuck in the Suez Canal.
Yeah, suddenly everyone cares about maritime logistics. So there's a day when you'll hit that trend right on the button. Samya, thank you for your question. You're asking how to catch up with the latest content marketing trends and what to go for. Audio visual content, text-based content, short or long form. What are the trends and which of those trends are you guys pursuing? Judith, we'll start with you this time.
So I consume a lot, and I know a lot of my cohort consumes a lot audio-based because we tend to be time poor. And unfortunately, what we'll do is we will consume two different things or we will do two different things at the same time. So for a lot of my cohort, so digital marketers of a particular age. So it's my birthday today, so I'm feeling my age, which is why I've also eaten all the sugar.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. So people of my age, we tend to be consuming in an audio format, not because we are too lazy to read, but because we're flying or we're jogging because that's the only moment we have. And yet we're still learning. So a lot of it is audio. I think audio, though, has the benefit that you can speed it up, whereas televisual is less friendly, shall we say, to the 1.5x speed that sometimes I'm listening to things at. But both audio and textual are the ways, because textual you can also scan, but we are often time poor. So whatever way we can consume content that will enable us to do it quickly, but still get the important information is the way that often, at least people I know in my cohort, are consuming it. And also in the companies that I'm working for, textual and audio is strong. Video is going to be much more for selling things. So we will do video if we're a B2C company. We'll do video, or if we're trying to get people to stick around in publishing.
Excellent. Thanks for that answer. Very detailed. Keith, your take on format.
I think that the format that I am building my career on is a content hub. And so instead of having a blog that just has a list of articles, think of it as a multimedia magazine. Not only will your customers find it more convenient than having to go to the YouTube channel and your events page and your blog, and you should eliminate the word blog and give it a name, give it your North Star, and really connect the dots to your customer with the name of your blog, and then have your events and your videos and interviews with your executives and customer interviews and storytelling about your customers all in one place in an interface that looks more like a magazine than just a list of articles. And don't have a section on your website that says videos. Intersperse videos with your other content and make it an experience. And if you do that, you'll not only make it more accessible to people, but think of all the concentration that lends to the authority and trust of your website and the metrics that'll drive.
Yeah, when COVID hit, I realized I was going to have like 10% more time in my life because I didn't have to fly around speaking at conferences. Like travel time would go down to basically to zero. So what should I do at that time? I decided to go to double down on video and YouTube. What's the best strategy for YouTube? Well, this is an automatic win for anybody that's been publishing for very long. If you already have articles that rank, your traffic magnets earlier, I called them cheese, like cheese and mousetraps. If you just make a video version of each of those high traffic articles and put that video at the top of those posts, you're going to immediately pump up the views on those articles, which helps launch your YouTube channel much faster. It's like almost instantly, all these videos that I made, which were just 12-minute versions of all these detailed articles, have like 500 views, 1,000 views with almost no promotion. In YouTube analytics, it just shows that as external views because they're just there. Plus, another trick is if you're writing an article and you think the key phrase is very competitive, but you see videos in the search results, the video version of that article may win when the text version doesn't. So it's like taking two bites. You get two shots at that key phrase, one with the video, one with the URL. So I'm a big fan. And just, again, I got to say it, Keith, you mentioned interviews. What an underrated format. I mentioned contributor quotes. You said executive interviews. Like you could imagine how that is. I don't think people even consider that. Interview technically could be video or text, but yeah, that's the ultimate in collaborative content. It's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks, Samia, for the question. I do not know the Cyrillic alphabet, so if anyone from SEMrush can pronounce the name for me. It's beautiful, isn't it? I love the international community. We'll wait for the pronunciation of the name.
It's Alexander.
Okay. Oh, Alexander. Okay.
Alexander, welcome.
Welcome, Alexander. Thank you for your question. It's quite simple. How do you create evergreen content? Judith, how do you create evergreen content?
How do I create evergreen content? Well, first I pick a really good color of paint. No, just joking. And I noticed Keith's got a lovely green background. Evergreen content is content that is not necessarily of the moment. So any article that contains reference to COVID is pretty much of the moment. Mm-hmm. But evergreen content is much more around something that is true over and over again. So Mother's Day. I often use that as an example. In England, we call it Mothering Sunday. It's Mother's Day in the US. We've got Mothering Sunday in the UK comes before Easter. Mother's Day, obviously, in Canada, where I'm from, in the US, is the, third Sunday or something in May. Mm-hmm. A sales page or a content about Mother's Day or Mothering Sunday for 2020 doesn't mean that you have to then take it down. You can keep it up for 2021, 2022, and especially for Christmas content, it's really good. Don't take it down, leave it up. For B2C, if you've got Christmas information, pull it down in January and say, we're going to the shows, we're going to, teaser you with what we're coming up with for Christmas as we go along. And just that content keeps growing and changing and attracting links, and it keeps ranking. And so when we hit Christmas, not only is your content spidered already in the index and already assessed, but because it's got age and links and value, it ranks better than newer content that's created. So something that lasts year after year after year and doesn't go out of date, or the 12 most important style tips that middle-aged women should keep in mind, could theoretically be evergreen content too, because we're not talking about style of the moment, but style of a particular age. So what hairstyle, clothing style, etc. suits a particular aged woman. Not that I necessarily ascribe to that, but that's the kind of thing that I think of as evergreen content.
Yeah, I love that. Keith, your thoughts about evergreen, which is interesting to ask you again, sales, marketing, alignment. A lot of execs care about news, but do evergreen topics work just as well?
I think they do. And if you focus on the problem, again, that community and events aspect of your content strategy, being able to go into the community and meet people and ask them what their problems are as a source of content, and then write about how people solve that, how you solve it, how your solutions play out, and tell stories about that. That never goes out of style, right? And I tell people in building a content strategy, your content's online 24/7, but you have to come up with a system that presents content that works the way you do, right? And so the system helps, but you have to feed it with things that stay relevant, and helping people solve their problems never goes out of style.
Never does, never will. I have a mini framework that I use when I do content strategy work with clients. And there's a set of words that are almost always used if you were to document a content strategy, as in like the content marketing mission statement. And here's my short list: tips, advice, insights, strategies, stories, reports, ideas, inspiration, checklists, and research. Those are all basically evergreen for the most part, or often are. News and trends are the bottom two items on this list, and they're completely separate in my mind. It's like a different strategy. You're automatically doing something completely different if you decide that news and trends are part of your content strategy, because now, search is sometimes just irrelevant, right? Does news doesn't rank in the same way. I don't know. I don't think that this might be an overstatement, but if you're publishing news and trends, forget about SEO. Unless you're in the Google News program, you don't have an SEO program. You're just publishing current stuff. You got to focus on email and social.
Yeah, news is a tough gig. Obviously, I've worked in publishing for a number of years, and it's a tough gig. And, when you've got people whose job it is to just churn it out, you've got an editor assigning headlines, you've got journos writing the articles, and then you're competing with that. So if you want to chase news, you have to have a compelling proposition. So Marie Haynes in the SEO industry,
right.
Barry Schwartz, so Search Engine Journal, SEMrush also, they publish news. They have a news roundup that they do. You're then competing against everybody else in this industry or in your industry for news. So evergreen content is smart because you don't have to keep chasing every day.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Alexander. I just noticed the time. I'm not sure if are we out of time, guys? SEMrush, let me know if we can continue here. I think we're at the top of the hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, the last one.
Lightning round.
Do you want me to, yeah.
Anupriya is asking, we'll start with you, Keith. How do you measure ROI for content? Leadership asks for a number of marketing leads or marketing qualified leads. Can you measure that? Can you tie that back?
Thanks for setting me up. If you Google ROI and my company name Publio, there's a free ROI calculator that you can download off my website. I hope that helps.
That's a short answer. Very helpful. Judith, how do you measure the ROI of content?
There are so many different ways that I do it. It's too difficult because it depends on the type of content, where in the funnel it is, and what purpose it's meant to fulfill. So content can be successful. If you're looking for marketing leads based on content, just be careful to set expectations. And I know it's intimidating when you're talking to the C-suite or to a boss about setting expectations. But if you don't set the expectation, how will they know that they're asking too much?
Yeah, if I have a short answer for that, it's an article we did once called Content Marketing Metrics, which if you search for content marketing metrics, you'll find my article ranking number 10 currently. It's at the bottom of page 1 in Google, but it makes the case that there's an inverse relationship between the visibility of a metric, like social media followers or shares, and the importance to the business. The most important metrics to business are things like net promoter score and marketing qualified leads and sales margins. Not easy to find, but very important. Other metrics, very easy to find, but unimportant. So there's that, I think they call it Julian's law. There's an inverse relationship between the visibility of a metric and its business impact. You guys, this was so much fun. Okay, Keith, tell us how to find you. People who want more of your brain, where can they get it?
You can go to Publio, PUBLI.io. You can also Google the new content culture and my name, Keith Reynolds, and it'll take you to on Amazon.
Book on Amazon. Thank you, Keith. Maybe we can share that link somewhere. Judith, how do we keep up with what you're doing?
Twitter, at Judith Lewis, as you can see. And from Twitter, you can also find Decabbit.com, which is Decabbit Consultancy, which is my consultancy. Or if you type in Judith Lewis and chocolate, or generally SEO and chocolate, you'll find me, because I'm a fierce chocolate judge. I also judge professional wine contests, and I judge SEO.
I knew that. You're a search awards judge. Yeah, that's and I'm Andy from Orbit Media. Orbitmedia.com/blog is where I write an article every 2 weeks. My new article today is a bit of research about the difference between what visitors want from websites and what websites actually give them. But more important, follow this space. Keep an eye on the SEMrush webinar series. It's packed. If this was the tip of the iceberg, if you're new to this channel. So I would just want to say thank you for everyone for attending. Thank you for those who asked questions. We're grateful. And thank you again to SEMrush and Impact Hero. Look for more about that. Remember that name. You're going to hear it again. Impact Hero, a tool that shows you the performance of all of your content at each different funnel stage. Like that, it just shows it to you. It's impressive. I think you'll enjoy it. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and have a beautiful, healthy, and safe day.
Thank you, Andy. Nice to meet you, Judith.
Thank you very much, Keith. Thank you very much, Andy.
Keep in touch, guys. Find me on LinkedIn or anywhere, and we'll see you next time.